make Saints want to win to show them up. I still want Cass to win.
There'd be nothing they could do that would turn you into a Saints fan for the day as them are. That's not ever going to happen.
It's an extreme. Yeah, it's an extreme unlikelihood.
I can't think of an extreme scenario. You might have to come up with one for me.
I can only imagine if they got the whole Tory front bench to be in their side, that might turn me around, David. I can't think of anything else right now. But yeah,
it's fairly extreme, although the way injuries are going and COVID at the moment, they never know.
I think the issue here with these cancellations, cynical as they might appear and stuff, and Cass did come out with a big thing explaining all the minor knocks that they had that made it difficult for them. It's the fact that the games were played so close together. So kind of like I said last week, even though there is an argument to say clubs should be hammered for this sort of stuff, there's also an element of the disrepute wasn't caused by these games being cancelled, it was caused by these games being scheduled in the first place. The way the season was structured to try and get all these games in and hammer these games into a period where they thought they'd be able to get full crowds in. Well, guess what? We didn't get there at the speed that they were expecting to anyway. So I think that's the bigger question here. And I think circumstances like this just help add weight to the calls that we're getting now that, the Right Honourable Lindsay Hoyle.
Yes. Speaker of the House
has added his voice to get this independent commission to review the state of play of things, to kind of take some of the decision making out of the self-interested club owners' hands for the betterment of the game, because whilst I think they do deserve a bigger say in how things generally are distributed and that sort of stuff, because it's really their money that makes our competition exist to the standard that it does exist, at the same time, they're not thinking about how to make the sport keep going. Because, short-termism is one of the biggest failures of our current economic model.
Yeah, and
self-interest leads to short-termism.
Yeah, it's almost a tradition in rugby league for it to be that way, isn't it? It's been that way ever since I've been a supporter of the sport. We are a great sport with just dreadful administration at all levels, club and nationally. Yeah. It's just horrible. Anyway.
But the decision making around the structure of certainly this last month of the season is what's bringing the game into disrepute, not Cass or Huddersfield calling off games, I feel.
No.
Round 13.
I'd like to be thinking, annoyed with Cass over this, but I'm really not. I just think the whole thing's a bit of a shambles at the moment. So
yeah.
I hope they get to play this weekend and that they're ready for Wembley.
Yep. Right, round 13. We already had a round 13 game that we talked about a while ago between Wakefield and Leigh, and we had only two more played this week, starting on Sunday night. I'll let you do the stats, but I'll do the score as you warm up to do your team stats. St Helens 24, Wigan 6. It was 18-0 to Saints at half-time, so Wigan would have been worse off by only 6 points if they'd have pulled a Cass. James Child was the match official. Do you want to tell us about this team stats and your winning team stats, David?
So Wigan fell below 1,000 metres and 90% tackle success rate, sure markers of failure. St Helens made over 600 more metres at 2.6 metres better average gain, although only 3 more breaks, which is typical of Saints. This game had more penalties than any other so far this season, with 22. Wigan losing the count 12-10. For the winning Saints, Mark Percival, 1 try, 6 tackle busts, 174 metres and 2 clean breaks. My man of the match, Alex Walmsley, 6 tackle busts, 164 metres. Tommy Makinson, 148 metres and 3 offloads. Lachlan Coote, 1 try assist and 130 metres. For the losers, Mark, do you want me to do that?
No, Jackson Hastings had 9 tackle busts and 166 kind of aimless meters running out of his own end, tiring himself out so he couldn't do anything at the other end is bless him with his effort. It's not his position. It's not. He's a trier, and these stats prove that, but it's not his position. Liam Farrell, the man, the legend, 1 try, 5 tackles, 116 metres. Sam Powell had a try assist and 52 tackles, and Oliver Gildart
Some of them legal.
All of them legal. He didn't get any disciplinary sightings or any penalties.
He should have done. Dirty git.
What? Which one?
The cannonball on Percival in the first half.
No, that was with the bend of the knee.
You haven't watched it again, have you? Because
No,
you wouldn't.
I haven't watched it again, no. But I watched it on the TV at the time. Anyway, Oliver Gildart as well with 101 metres. Here you go. Here you can key off on someone who actually did do something wrong.
Yeah, he should have been sent off. Willie Isa. Grade C dangerous throw, 2-match penalty notice where he dropped Wellesby on his head. Kai Pearce-Paul, who I thought was a bit unlucky actually, was cautioned for a dangerous contact. He was a bit late. And Harry Smith cautioned for a dangerous contact. He was a bit later.
Well, there was confusion around the Kai Pearce-Paul thing because when the actual sin binning was given, the explanation was that there was no attempt to wrap up the player, so it was a shoulder charge, which to me, a shoulder charge where it's not a high tackle is just a penalty, not a sin binning. It wasn't really late in any way, shape or form.
It was marginal.
But later on in the game, when he was talking about the Harry Smith penalty, he said about he basically said the Kai Pearce-Paul one was sin bin because he was late. So I guess what he said is it was a shoulder and he was late, and that would add up to a yellow card, even though really he probably wasn't late.
Yeah, I thought it was very much. I thought it was a bit unlucky on that one.
But the Willie Isa one was out of control. I mean, it was a really good tackle until he stopped tackling him and just dropped him.
And let him drop on his head. I mean,
well, he didn't control him to the floor, did he? He just
no, he didn't. He dropped him on his head.
He ran in, made the right call, made the right play, until he just stopped controlling the tackle.
Yeah, and dropped him on his head.
I don't think he even dropped him, David. I think he got him into a position and then just let nature, gravity, whatever, take its course.
It's called dropping, Mark.
No, honestly, I don't even think he controlled it enough to have dropped him. I think that's how reckless it was. I don't think he controlled it enough to have dropped him. I think he just let him go without even.
It was bad. I think Wellesby was lucky not to get significantly injured with that. I think he was lucky to get 2 games for that. There was a Saints player a couple of years ago that did something equally dumb and let someone go in an uncontrolled tackle and they hit their head and he got I think 4 games for it.
Part of it was Wellesby wasn't injured, was he? So sometimes that does play a role.
He was lucky not to be.
I'm not disputing that, but that does play a role sometimes in the thinking on these things afterwards, and we say it shouldn't do. Yeah.
It shouldn't. I think
he landed on his shoulder more than his. He did land on his shoulder, not his head. But again, that was through luck, not any.
It was more on the back of his. It was more on the back of his neck, I think, which is equally bad. But I think Isa was already in my bad books for being a bit of a twat in the first half.
Yeah.
When Percival was on the floor injured, and Isa thumped into but Cole cocked him from behind. Which was penalised, but he was lucky that wasn't a sin binning because.
I think the match officials
just ridiculous.
They couldn't gauge really what had happened because it was so kind of bizarre and stupid. But yeah, the worry there for me was if Percival actually did have an injury.
Yeah.
It turned out he didn't. But if he actually did have an injury and it was a head knock, say, and then Willie Isa's running into him and basically he sort of stopped himself before he got to him, but he pushed him instead of running through him, didn't he? He got to him and pushed him rather than running through him, trying to win a penalty. It was cynical and stupid. But if he actually did have an injury and a head knock, and you've run through and pushed someone over, then
and Isa couldn't have known that.
That could be serious, couldn't it? Yeah. So I'm surprised there wasn't a game for that. Adding onto the ban just because of you really couldn't. It wasn't. super malicious or super heavy-handed, but you really couldn't know. So it was careless of the grading up of the grade A disorder to me, and I wouldn't have been shocked if there was another game tacked on for that, but there wasn't.
There wasn't. Shall we go on to some of the fan views of this one?
So Ian, this is where when we do it, this is where people realise, doing a show over Skype like we have done for the last few years, sometimes we don't key each other up great. Go on, Mark. At Ian6227 said, Saints obviously were going to win due to recent form, but the standard of refereeing was atrocious. 15 plus penalties, well actually 22 penalties. Tells you all you need to know about James Childs. Here we go, a run of Childs here, which is fantastic. Everyone loves an S on the end of his name unnecessarily. Surely it'd be children if it was plural. All you need to tells you all you need to know about James Child after a Super League ref. Some awful decisions.
Alan Walker says, one game all weekend and they serve up that shit. It can't be the first time they've played in the rain, so it doesn't forgive non-stop dog shots, grub acts and cheap thuggery. Soft ref let too much go. Not so much lost control as never had control. Saints were stains. Saints were better obs. Alan,
read it as they write it.
You spoil that review, but they didn't have to be much better. No wonder some people watch soccer. Good job there's none on. Yeah, he's right. Go on.
At MikeWebb58 said, game over by half-time as dominant Saints were too strong for bedraggled Wigan. Biggest positive being the Prince coming through a full game strongly. Does that mean Percival?
It does.
Right. Felt sorry for Willie Isa, whose increasingly desperate attempts to get an early respite from the rain were thwarted by James, again, plural, Childs.
Yes, indeed. He's right. That was quite a funny one, that. Neil Ormston, uninspiring contest between two average teams. Watch it, Neil. Wigan lucky to come up against the usual dull Saints attack. He's right there. As against a good attacking team, you'd expect them to let in about 40 at the minute. Saints lucky to be playing Wigan's second string. As against a good defensive side, they probably have only scored about 2 points tonight. Hard to see either of these in the grand final on current form. We shall see, my friend.
Good job, Neil. As Wigan and St Helens know, but Warrington also know, that the grand final isn't played on how you're playing in July. It's how you played in October. Ro Hayden said, the ref was shocking. How Pierce Paul got yellow carded for what happened. The second half was a lot better for Wigan.
I think one of the things, it got up a little bit of a mention in here, Mark, with Alan's review. But one of the things that doesn't come out in this is just how bloody atrocious the weather was. I mean, it was absolutely hammering down before the game. So when I got into St Helens, I went to see my dad on the way to the game, and it was bouncing off the roads on the way into town. So it's a good job it's a sandy area, because it would have been the pitch would have been underwater. Certainly the roads were. So it already started before the game. Everything was wet.
Look at the scenes from Halifax that day, how wet that was. We could have had that, couldn't we?
If we'd have been playing with that Rhino bar of soap ball that we had last year, there wouldn't have been a complete set of 6 all game. So it was really wet before they started the game. We kind of got through the first half with it drizzling a bit, and then in the second half, it went off again. It was absolutely lashing down in the ground. I was stood with a mate of mine who had stupidly left his coat in the car. Was wondering how the hell he was going to get back in one piece to his car, which was parked about half a mile away. I'll be seeing him at Wembley next week, so I'll see whether he's still in one piece. It was awful. So, whilst I understand what Alan's saying, we've played before in the rain, he's right with that, but this was exceptionally bad. It was as bad as I remember going up to Bradford to watch a Saints game about, a decade ago, and coming away about stone heavier because it had just been raining non-stop all, for hours, and it was like that. It was awful. It was no night to be playing rugby. So it's a miracle actually that the first half was even vaguely fluent, and I wasn't surprised at all that the second half just turned into a slugfest. it was impossible whether to play rugby